Welcome to another exciting episode of Marvelous Videos. I'm your host, Tia Ayer. Mutant monster gargoyles from the Terror Within movie franchise explained. If you think you like The Alien as a science fiction horror movie, remember that Roger Cornman loves it exponentially more than you ever will. The Terror Within happens to be one of the several movies he has based off of Alien. Some will go far to label it as low-budget ripoff, as well as they wouldn't go wrong to say so.
I'm gonna hold it for long. Jesus!
The movie stars Andrew Stevens as David, Terri Treas as Linda, Starr Andreeff as Sue, and Yvonne Sa as Karen. Directed by Thierry Notz, it revolves around a world where a mutation has given rise to mutated creatures who wish to dominate the Earth. The surviving humans have retreated to underground bunkers and do not come up to the surface to prevent themselves from being killed by the creatures. These creatures also have one primary motive: to repopulate and increase their numbers. They rape human women to make them have their kids. What causes the events of the story to unfold is when Karen gives birth to a gargoyle, which wreaks havoc in the underground laboratory. The movie also has a sequel where we get to learn a little bit more about David and the reason behind the mutation. As David tries to find the components for an antidote, he falls in love with a woman who has been impregnated by a gargoyle who is now Lucis. The Terror Within, as a title, is very literal, as it refers to the terror growing within the womb. The sequel has Andrew Stevens returned from the screen as David, alongside a dog he had in the first movie. Bitch R. Lee Emery has a role as well, which he bodies perfectly. Before diving into the content, we would like to make a very small request to our viewers. Please subscribe to Marvelous Videos. Like and comment on our videos and press the bell icon to be notified whenever we upload a video. We would be grateful to you, and we hope to bring you the best nerdy content out there. And with that, let's get right to this video. It Wants to Get Out, The Terror Within 1989. The movie opens in a dystopian future, where a group of mutant creatures called gargoyles have plagued the world. Humans fight these monsters for their survival. After a biochemical attack, a significant portion of the human population either died or mutated into these monsters. Two survivors, John and Michael, are a part of the Mojave Lab. However, they've lost contact with their sister lab, the Rocky Mountain Lab. They survey the world and investigate mutant groups. The two of them investigate a large group of buzzards, which is basically a type of bird. However, while doing so, they are attacked by the gargoyles. Sue and David hear the two of them fall under his attack over the radio. Andrew Stevens, who plays David, starred in a science fiction horror movie called The Watchers in 1988, a year before The Terror Within was released. The horror makeup and special effects for the creatures in The Watchers was similar to that of The Terror Within. Anyway, Sue and David leave their bunker to help rescue John and Michael, but when they find them, they are already dead. Meanwhile, they find another girl, the sister called Karen. As she was injured, Sue and David brought her back to their bunker. They put Karen on anesthesia. To make matters worse, Karen gives birth to a gargoyle. This monster gets loose while in the bunker, putting all the people there at jeopardy. One of the guys, Hal, comes up with a plan to take the gargoyle down. But the execution goes wrong, and Neil and Andre become the gargoyle's prey. The gargoyle then attacks another guy called David and injures his dog Butch. It then captures Sue and kidnaps her. It needs Sue alive and well because the gargoyle intends to impregnate her. Gargoyles wish to populate, and being vile creatures, they rape human females to impregnate them. This is why Karen was left injured and left undead. The gargoyle impregnates Sue naturally. Sue does not wish to give birth to a gargoyle, so she tries to abort the fetus by herself. However, the procedure goes wrong and she ends up killing herself accidentally. David and Linda come up with a plan to take care of the gargoyle once and for all. They lure it into the ventilation system, and the gargoyle gets trapped there, which the duo uses it to their advantage, and it falls into an exhaust fan. The gargoyle is then dismembered and it dies. Linda and David reconnect with the Rocky Mountain Lab via the radio. Gargoyles had a weakness. The high-pitched frequency of a dog whistle was their vulnerability. So the duo leaves the bunker with their dog, Butch, and leaves a very high-frequency megaphone with a dog whistle sound on it to keep the bunker safe as they go into the outside world. They wait for the other gargoyles to enter their open bunker and then implode it by detonating explosives. The two then leave for a journey, probably heading towards the Rocky Mountain lab. Another new topic of conversation that is birthed during this time is with reference to abortion. As one of the characters is raped by a gargoyle, people debate whether she is pregnant due to the gargoyle or by her human partner. As a movie, The Terror Within isn't the best science fiction horror, but is as far from being repulsive. It pulls inspiration from Alien quite a lot. Thankfully, it works. There are some gore effects which are good enough for its time and era, and the movie comes with a decent dose of entertainment value. The shock factor is not its strong suit, which can be a bit meh for those who love the shock from certain horror scenes. Because the budget is pretty low, the CGI for the monster is a bit, not good. However, it manages to be creepy enough with its huge overbite. The gargoyles are also responsible for giving us a lot of gory scenes, one of the most notable ones being when a woman's stomach explodes while giving birth to a gargoyle, which soon grows large and turns violent. The premise of the movie isn't the first of its time and wasn't the last either. Surviving humans living in underground bunkers while monsters roam the streets is simple, but enjoyable as a setting. Not too long ago, the movie Love and Monsters portrayed a very similar premise. This combined with low lethal and mutant monsters helps create a heavy, distressful world.
I just wish I could hear it.
The mutant monsters, aka the gargoyles, are the main monsters of the movie. A devastating plague had ruined the civilization, and its biochemical nature gave rise to mutations. These mutations began to roam the earth and had the desire to procreate more. It is believed that pre-mutation, the gargoyles were humans, which is why they could reproduce with other humans. This was one of the driving factors for the creatures. Well, this and the need for domination. The surviving humans could not fight these creatures as they did not have enough strength to do so. Meanwhile, the gargoyles populated and took over the earth. There is some CGI involved and their deception, but beyond that, it looks like it's just a guy in a horrifying suit. They reproduce by raping women and impregnating them. They grew very fast as well, and as a result, the gestation period when a human woman was pregnant with a gargoyle's offspring was very short and deadly. In one such instance, the people tried to abort a fetus that was growing abnormally fast, but before they could do so, it burst out of the mother's belly and hid in the air vents. The mother died while the creature matured in the vents and became way too powerful to stop. The gargoyles had super strength and accelerated healing. Despite being burnt, beaten, or harmed with electric shock, they could heal quite fast. In fact, the monster that matured in the vents was too powerful to be taken down by laser weaponry, a crowbar, and a flamethrower. It could literally regenerate despite being hit with a spear. Following Sue's death, who died after she tried to kill the monster's fetus inside with drugs, David and Linda were able to find a vulnerability to use against the creature. They realized that it was vulnerable to high-pitched frequencies, such as the one emitted by dog whistles. Several gargoyles were taken down after David and Linda detonated explosives to kill them. Meanwhile, the gargoyles died after being shredded in the exhaust fan. Part man, part beast, total nightmare. The Terror Within 2, 1991. The Terror Within returned 2 years after its release with a sequel. It follows the events laid down by the predecessor, but this sequel has certain differences that we will get into in a bit. Also, Andrew Stevens takes the lead this time around as well. The movie is also directed by him, marking his debut as a director. The dog Butch returns, thankfully. Earth is still a wasteland and humanity lives in pockets called bunkers, but this time around, there is a ray of hope. The sequel gives us the backstory behind the mutation, which is something the first movie did not elaborate on. Turns out a nuclear disarmament treaty resulted in covert experiments being conducted. These were experiments for biological warfare, which resulted in the plague and wiped out humanity, barring those who mutated and those who retreated underground. Since these creatures were formed after humans being mutated, thanks to the plague, a vaccine was developed to counter the mutation or the disease. There was still a major problem, though. The components required to make the vaccine required people to come to the surface again. A surface overrun by these dangerous gargoyles, who are called Lussus. Stephen plays the scientist Pennington, who is to be dispatched to the surface to curate the materials required for the vaccine. While on the surface, he comes across this other woman. He tries to get the girl and the materials back to the colony, but they are attacked by the mutant monsters. David Pennington is a scientist from the Rocky Mountain Lab, a name that reminds you of its prequel. After coming to the surface, he hasn't been able to return to the lab. Making matters worse, 2 members in Pennington's lab had been sick. Meanwhile, the leader of their group in the laboratory, Von Deming, played by actor R. Lee Ermey, sends 3 more people to the colony on the surface. This is unfruitful as 2 of them are subsequently chased by Lessus, while the other is killed. Ermey acted in this movie because he needed money to pay for his house. During the battle with the Lessus, one of the creature's fingers are cut off. It is then brought to the laboratory for investigation and analysis. David meets the woman that was mentioned a few moments ago. Her name is Ariel, played by actress Claire Hoke. As you may have already guessed, they end up falling in love. David tries to bring her back to the facility along with the vaccine ingredients, but life isn't all sunshine and rainbows in this post-apocalyptic desert. The 2 run into a band of scavengers, which turns out to be super detrimental to Pennington's plan. As the Lessus seeks human women to mate, Ariel is raped by one. She is impregnated and the baby begins to grow rapidly within her. After a few weeks pass by, the Lessus that is a horrible mutation is born. The finger that was brought into the study for analysis grows to become another monster because it has regenerative powers. Now, with 2 monsters to wreak havoc, the facility is in dire situation and almost everyone is killed. The only ones left are Ariel, David, and another couple. David has acquired knowledge of how to fight the mutant creatures after the Mojave tragedy, which are the events of the first story. The 3 other human characters rely on his experience for their survival miles below the Earth's surface, as they are faced with the threat of fighting not 1 but 2 horrifying mutations. In the end, the 2 monsters are not only slain, but are also electrocuted and then impaled in the control center on the underground bunker colony. The movie did not receive positive feedback from the critics. The plot is not exciting, and the premise is exactly the same. The creatures look different this time around. It is much more cringe than the man in the suit with the overbite. The movie has no clear motive. It begins as a story about finding an antidote. A romantic pairing is introduced as well, but as the movie progresses, it revokes its focus from the antidote or the pairing or even the lead character that is David, and instead is centered around the characters in the bunker, most whom end up dead. There is another plot hole that feels weird. The first movie lays emphasis on how these creatures are vulnerable to high-frequency whistle noises, kind of similar to the symbiote in Spider-Man 3. However, Peter Parker uses that to his advantage, while in The Terror Within 2, it really isn't used against the creatures. The monster does not have a center stage either, at least not visually. It was a lot more visible in the first movie and had better design. Here it lurks around in the shadows, but the pro to this approach is that the monster feels a lot more mysterious. R. Lee Ermey's performance comes as a breath of fresh air in the movie as he nails his part. The monster Lessus has properties similar to that of the gargoyle. It can regenerate, as we can see when the lone finger regenerates into a fully grown monster. It also has super strength and endurance, being the lead antagonist species. However, it looks very different. It's like a man with a skin that has melted from his body, while the muscular system is covered with slime. It also has a weird protrusion from the side of its head. The reason for this added feature is unknown, and it doesn't really serve much purpose to the monster. It is possible that this monster is not vulnerable to high frequency like the gargoyles in The Terror Within, as the feature isn't used to fight the Lessus. It has some other tiny differences as well. In the first movie, the birth of the gargoyle killed the mother, who was birthing it, but here, Ariel managed to survive the birth of the Lessus. Also, the gestation period lasted a lot longer that was implied in the predecessor, even though it only lasted for a few weeks. It is possible that the biochemical plague that caused the mutation only mutated the males in society and killed off the women, which is why the Lessus, or even the gargoyles, are male and seek out human women to reproduce. It hasn't directly been implied whether the creature are gender neutral or whether females exist or not, but if they did, it would have made more sense to mate with the female mutants. Although these creatures want to dominate the world, and impregnating human women leads to the death of a human and the birth of a gargoyle or a Lessus, which takes care of 2 birds with 1 stone. The people present around the pregnant women are also subject to the wrath of the newborn mutant, which kills more people. Why should you watch The Terror Within? Despite all of its flaws, The Terror Within has evolved to become a cult classic in the eyes of horror lovers. The first movie is more merely inspired by Alien, while the second movie just treads around that area. However, this gives fans of Alien another similar movie to go for a Halloween binge. The franchise is also not a stranger to gore. The depiction is graphic and the amount quite high. If that's what you like, The Terror Within should be right up your alley. If you're in the mood to relax with your friends and make fun of weird monsters, this is a good movie to opt for as well. This is also a great movie if you want mindless entertainment. Well, the first one at least. Not every movie needs to be a cinematic masterpiece. What do you think about these movies? Did you enjoy this video? If yes, then don't forget to like and comment on this video below. Till then, goodbye and have a nice day. Thank you for watching another wonderful episode from Marvelous Videos. I'm your host, Tia Ayer.